You ever meet somebody, their lifestyle and how they live and how they treat people and how they make their money is kind of sketchy, but at the same time, the benefit of being with them is so great because of those things, whether it's exciting, whether it's interesting, whether it's just something you've never experienced and you're drawn to it. Well, here's my story about that. Let's go. Story time. So I was in Texas swiping on Bumble, and I come across a profile where a young lady had said in her description that she was in Texas, but she was planning on moving back home to the Cleveland area. So I was like, okay, I live in the Cleveland area. I inbox her, blase. You know, we talk a little bit. Eventually we exchange phone numbers and, get to know each other a little better. Now, the thing about a long distance relationship, you got to have realistic expectations. You guys don't live close to each other. So it's like, you got to do all that other stuff. You know what I'm saying? Or not make your relationship so serious that it just become unrealistic. So as we became to get closer, we didn't, call each other boyfriend or girlfriend. We didn't have like, oh, you can't date or anything like that. We just, enjoyed the time we had, and we, plan to, link up and meet each other in the future. Now, through the whole process, she was very forthright, told me a lot about herself. She seemed extremely honest and almost like an oversharer because she would say so many things. But at the end of the day, I understood why she would do those things. And now I look for people who do these things so I can actually ask them deeper questions. And if you don't know, you can get a copy of my list, and it's a list of questions. I'll have it in the description so you can download a copy of it today, because I missed a lot of things with her that eventually came back to almost kill me. Literally. So at this point, I'm back in Ohio. We're FaceTiming, she's sending me pictures and, all this stuff during this time. I had no reason to think that she wasn't who she said she was. I had no reason to have flashbacks of other relationships where, I might have missed some things, okay? So, sun is out today, baby. We're getting closer and closer to the date where she's going to be in Ohio, right? And we're going to finally get to link up and all that stuff. And so I think it was like a week away, and she sort of told me what her itinerary was. She was like, her parents going to pick her up, from the airport. She's going to get settled, and then she want to come see me. But she had planned this whole 2-day weekend with me and her, just spending time, me and her, to get to know each other. She said she had rented all this stuff and made all these accommodations and stuff. So I was like, cool, bet. Now, up until this point, she had told me, she had went to college. She dropped out 20 credits short of her degree in psychology. She just didn't want to do it no more. She got into real estate. She bought 2 apartment buildings, and, she had a nice little portfolio of properties and whatnot. And then she had a piece of her family's business. To this day, there was things I should have saw, but I did not see them. I did not. So ride with me on this one. It comes this fateful day when we're supposed to link up. Now, I had a little bit of nerves because, we've been talking for a few months, and this was the first time I'm actually going to get to see her in the flesh. And I FaceTimed her a lot, so I know she looks like she says she looks. But, I've had some traumatic experiences, if you will. Comes that fateful day. The first thing we was going to do was meet at this little taco spot and have some tacos before we moved on to the next little thing, because I really enjoy tacos. And she took that in consideration when she was planning this weekend. So we link up. I walk into the spot. I see her. Y'all, even when I think back to this moment, I say to myself often, why? You know what I'm saying? Why do people do the things they do? And it's crazy to me. It's because it's y'all watch these videos and y'all talk a lot about my decision making when it comes to women, but nobody really talks about the decision making when it comes to people and how they handle other people. Not even individualized, just how we do people, period. I walk into the spot, y'all. Now I see her and I see her face, and she's extremely beautiful. Just take that into consideration. But why was she 8.5 months pregnant? Big old belly. 8.5 months pregnant. I'm talking with child. So she's excited to see me, and she's like, hey, just ignoring the fact she is carrying sextuplets. I mean, she's huge. And so I'm like, I'm just standing there and I'm looking and I'm like, hey. She's like, she gives me a hug and she's like, I know, I've got some explaining to do. I understand this, and the third. So she sits me down at the table and she's just like, look, when we first started talking, you know, I didn't really expect much of it. I just really needed somebody to talk to and just, you know, sort my feelings out and emotions and no pressure and stuff like that. And I didn't think it would grow into what it grew into. And as it did, I just didn't want to lose it. So I just didn't tell you I was pregnant. Now, I'm totally at this point, I'm just like not even interested anymore. I don't even want the tacos. Now, let me take that back. I'm greedy. I wanted the tacos. So then she tells me a little bit more of the story, like why she was in Texas. I'm telling y'all, man, this stuff be crazy. And it's like, I look back at my life and I'm these experiences. And then this is another thing. So like, as I'm doing these story times, right? A lot of people be like, well, you date a lot. You just spend all this time in the streets with these hoes. You fast. And I'd be like, I've been single for going on 12 years. So even if I only went on 10 dates a year, that's 120 dates in 12 years. That's a lot of stories. I ain't even halfway there yet. But then, you know, in doing that same math, it's people who've been single for 5 years, 6 years, 7 years who have not even went on one date. I just don't want that life. I don't want that boring life. I don't want that life of not engaging with people, not engaging with society, none of that. I don't want that. That's boring. You can keep that. Back to the story. So she's like, you know, her ex previously had got her into a little bit of trouble, and he basically, she got caught with some, as they say in the streets, work. Drugs. She got caught with the drugs in her car. When she got arrested for that, her family got her out of jail and she went back to her house where her ex thought she was about to be in jail for a minute. And so he was in the house with another girl and she shot up the house while they was in it. And that's what she went to jail for, prison in Texas for almost 2 years. And so when I was talking to her, she was living in a halfway house, but I ain't think of it. I mean, the house looked halfway decent. She never seemed like she was behind bars. I know y'all like this boo-boo the food, but listen, what am I supposed to say? What am I supposed to do? This is what happened. She's telling me this whole traumatic story of, you know, how we got to this point. And I'm just like, at the same time, I'm like, man, I had just did like a couple crazy, really bad situations. And I was just like, man, this ain't my problem. And so I told her, I was like, hey, you know, I get why, you know, you did what you did, but this ain't me. I don't want to do it. I'm sorry. You know what I'm saying? And so her eyes started watering. She started getting, you know, really emotional and, you know, all this stuff. And, you know, at the taco place. And so I'm like, you know, looking around and I'm like, I think I should go. And she's like, no. You know, I planned this whole weekend. I got hotel reservations. I got a masseuse. I got all this stuff. Can we just, you know, do this day? You know what I'm saying? And so I'm like, I really don't want to do it. I really don't want to do it. So I tell her, I'm like, no, I'm gonna go ahead and leave because it's just a lot to ingest and I'm cool. So I leave. She calls me that night, you know what I'm saying? Calls me the next day. Ooh, that's a big old deer. I sort of, you know what I'm saying? I fade off into the distance on this situation because I'm just like, I'm not going to get all hot and heavy, you know, So maybe like 4 months go by. Now, I'm throwing an event in Cleveland. And by the way, if y'all ever want to come to my events, tap in at Swoope Events. Right now, I'm doing hip hop and R&B bingo, like all over the country, setting that up. So if y'all want to come to one, you know, just tap in on my website, TomSwoopeEvents.com. So I was throwing hip hop and R&B bingo. And lo and behold, here come old girl through the front door. Now, this is a good 4 months.